Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
First, a word from our sponsor. The Daily Compliance News for November 19, 2021, the Banks as Watchdogs edition. And we begin with that story from the Wall Street Journal, Risk and Compliance Journal. Dylan Tokar reporting that FinCEN has asked banks to watch for transactions linked to environmental crimes. The world of illegal logging may seem far removed from the U.S. financial hubs, but governments are hoping bankers can play a role in stopping such crimes. FinCEN issued its first ever advisory on environmental crimes, asking banks and other financial institutions to pay special attention to transactions that may be linked to activity that the agency says contributes to climate change and a loss of biodiversity. Really interesting development, and certainly something that every compliance professional needs to be aware of. And frankly, this would certainly seem to move from financial institutions to commercial banks as well. Next up, also from the New York Times, a bipartisan group of state attorney generals said on Thursday they had opened investigations into Meta, a company formerly known as Facebook, for promoting its social media app, Instagram, while knowing of mental and emotional harms caused by the service. 11 states are leading this investigation and are examining whether the company's actions violated state consumer protection law and put the public at risk. The University of Miami professor who is an expert on money laundering was sentenced to prison for 6 months for money laundering. Professor Bruce Bagley, former Professor Bruce Bagley, was sentenced today for money laundering. The irony of this, of course, is not lost on really anyone. To have a national expert on bribery and corruption engaging in money laundering just destroyed the professor's career, and really points to you have to be always vigilant. And finally, from Reuters, Elizabeth Warren has asked the Securities and Exchange Commission to take a look at Trump's SPAC deal. This has caused the SPAC deal raised a lot of eyebrows, particularly when it came out that the deal may not have followed rules governing SPACs, because the deal was discussed before the SPAC was created, which would indicate that the SPAC was not unaware of the potential Trump investment or the potential Trump company, and that, of course, violates SPAC rules. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.